What is up, Steelers Nation? Thank you so much for jumping on to another episode of All Steelers Talk. I'm Noah Strackbine, joined always by my man in the corner, producer Nick Belsky. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talkers. Subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they play football tomorrow. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everybody tuning in. We appreciate you. We're obviously always thankful and grateful for each and every one of you. I hope everybody's having some safe travels if you're on the road right now and gearing up for lots of Christmas cookies tomorrow. So very excited for it. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be playing some football on the day we are all opening presents and possibly still trying to wrap presents if you are me and, well, just don't know how to wrap presents. And there's plenty of news to talk about. George Pickens is officially back along with a slew of other players, but the Pittsburgh Steelers, they are not health-free. They did not escape this one without losing others. We'll dive into it. It's Tuesday, but everything's a little bit extra here on this Christmas week. We're diving into what's more likely: Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs, our game picks. And as we do every day, we will answer all of your questions. So make sure you're tossing them in the chat. Nick, Merry Christmas, my friend. How you feeling?
I'm feeling a little hungry because I haven't eaten it all today, knowing that the second I'm done with this podcast, through the next 48 hours, I'm probably only going to be eating. So I'm excited for all the food, but I'm also getting hungry. So if you hear grumbling, just disregard that. It's just my stomach.
100%. No worries there. I actually did the opposite. Okay. So my house has been Christmas cookie central. My wife's been going nuts with it. And I'm obviously eating them, all of them, as they're coming out. So last night, I actually had a dream that I was using. I'm not joking. Last night I had a dream that I was using my stomach as a kickstand like a bike. That is where we are. I woke up this morning and said, okay, it's time for a diet. We're here. We've officially cracked the Noah's getting a little bit too comfortable with the eating cookies thing. That's okay. I'm going to be with you. We'll be eating lots of food on this end as well. So I'm glad. I'm glad that your stomach is gearing up. We got 57 minutes before you get to devour some food. Very excited for the Pittsburgh Steelers Kansas City Chiefs game tomorrow, a game that Taylor Swift will not be playing at halftime. And we've been asked a number of times if, well, would you rather this or see Taylor Swift? I'm all about seeing Taylor Swift, people. But what I'm also about is seeing George Pickens on the field for the Pittsburgh Steelers, which we will all get as an early Christmas present. There is no questionable tag. There is no questions about whether or not George Pickens is going to play in Week 17 against Kansas City. The Pittsburgh Steelers get their star wide receiver back on the field for the first time in 3 games after missing time with a hamstring injury. George Pickens, full participant the last 2 days of practice, apparently has been medically cleared, so he's good to go, and there shouldn't really be any questions about his availability. I do not expect a pitch count for the Steelers wide out in this one, especially with the AFC North still very much so on the line in this. Meanwhile, Deshaun Elliott, Larry Ogunjobi, Dante Jackson, all back. Justin Fields is questionable. Ben Skoranek, which, say what you want, that's a massive loss, is also out, along with Joey Porter Jr. But the big one here, the Christmas present, the Christmas miracle everybody's been waiting for in Pittsburgh. George Pickens returns. I'll start off with the big one, the big giant question here. There are a lot of concerns revolving around the Pittsburgh Steelers. There are a very long list of doubts and a very wide range of expectations, and now really outlooks for what the Steelers could do to finish off this season. George Pickens comes back. He's the biggest name on this list by far. How much does it increase, improve, or change your outlook on the Pittsburgh Steelers, not just this week, but moving forward?
Oh, tenfold, easily, because the last we saw of George Pickens was whenever the Pittsburgh Steelers offense was starting to click, and honestly, the best that we had seen it, whenever they put up 44 points in an AFC North divisional rival game against the Cincinnati Bengals. Since then, we haven't seen them, and yes, it's gone in the opposite direction. Russ has struggled. They haven't been able to find that moonball guy in his absence. So now that he comes back, if they can pick up where they left off 4 weeks ago in Cincinnati, I think that changes the outlook on this team, because the defense, if healthy, is something that we all expect to buckle down and get their stuff together. But When it comes to the offense, we notice, and certainly the last 3 weeks have told the story, that they need George Pickens to click on all cylinders, and they have without him.
No, I agree. This is, you could talk defense and the expectations there, but you're still playing Patrick Mahomes. And I understand you got to beat Patrick Mahomes, but at the same time, it's Patrick Mahomes. Okay. There's almost a lower bar when you play games that involve him on the defensive side of the football. The offense is what's going to come out here and win this game. This is not going to be, you're going to shut down Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Andy Reid and Isaiah Pacheco. No, this is going to be, the Pittsburgh Steelers offense did way more than enough to keep themselves in this game and to come out victorious. Russell Wilson, George Pickens, Najee Harris, Pat Freiermuth, Jalen Warren, the offensive line, Arthur Smith, put this team on their back and came out with a much-needed win. I think that's massive to get George Pickens back. I also think in the grand scheme of everything that's happened, okay, and the downfall that is happening around the Pittsburgh Steelers, the one big giant thing here is we don't know if it's just George Pickens, because in the same context, in the same conversation of, well, Russ stinks, well, the Steelers are done, their worst nightmare came true, people are mentioning, well, George Pickens just made a boatload of money, like so much money. Okay, great. Well, George Pickens is back. So the Pittsburgh Steelers get their star wide receiver. Is it enough? I don't know. We'll find out. But I do think that having George out there gives you the answer to the test. Whether or not that answer is an A or a C, we'll find out. But it gives you the answer to the test that you've been waiting for, to find out, okay, this offense in a bad streak with really good opponents that are also beat up. Let's bring that to light as well. The Chiefs are beat up. You get your guy back, and can he be enough? I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on that. We'll obviously make our picks here at the end of the show, but I do think it's huge. On the other side of that, not having Joey Porter Jr., your concern level there.
Yeah, we obviously would have liked to see him kind of repeat what he did against DeAndre Hopkins last year when Hopkins was a member of the Tennessee Titans. That was the first kind of breakout game for Joey Porter where we said, okay, he can travel with some of these top tier receivers. And I understand even DeAndre Hopkins last year was DeAndre Hopkins past his prime, but still a guy that if you can lock down, you can put the clamps on, that says a lot for your talent and your ability. Now, Joey's struggled over the last couple of weeks. I didn't think he looked too bad in his short sample size against the Baltimore Ravens. But again, it's hard to judge whenever you leave a game with an injury like that. But I think this would have been a great opportunity to get right against a familiar opponent, an opponent that he knows that he's shut down in the past. So it's unfortunate that you lose him, especially considering that Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver core seems to be kind of hitting their stride here. They get Hollywood Brown back last week. Now he's getting into his second game here. DeAndre Hopkins has been a good fit, and Xavier Worthy has started to take off as that guy that they expect him to be when they drafted him in the early rounds of the NFL draft. So the wide receiver core for the Chiefs is on the rise, and it stinks that you're not going to have your number one cornerback to kind of battle that and go against it.
I agree. If there are, Deshaun Elliott being back is massive in my eyes, especially against Travis Kelce. But the second guy you didn't want to lose in this secondary is Joey Porter Jr. Because you needed somebody to just be a rock, your go-to in those troublesome moments. That's Joe. I get Joey has not had the greatest season. I understand all these things, while also acknowledging Joey is easily the Steelers' best defensive back at the outside corner position. And you're going to need that against these guys in these crucial moments. You're going to need that against Patrick Mahomes. I think it's huge not to have Joey Porter. I think it's very undervalued how big of a loss that is. Dante Jackson should help, but Dante Jackson leaves almost every game. Like you're missing Dante for at least a series, sometimes half of a game every single week. So you can't really rely on this guy to be your number one because he's not healthy enough to remain your number one. I don't know. I think big questions there without Joey Porter Jr. To get Larry O back, to get Deshaun back, I think those are massive. But again, we'll see what happens because none of it matters if your offense can't score any points, and it all comes back to George Pickens. We'll see what happens there. Injury report, massive today. Huge news. I mean, besides that, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been chilling. And it's crazy to understand and really notice how chill the Pittsburgh Steelers are right now, because this team, we're not focused on practice. We're not focused on improvements. The one positive of the Pittsburgh Steelers having to cram a week into 3 days or 2 days is the fact that we didn't really have the time to dive very heavily into Russell Wilson and what he needs to do better, or Najee Harris being outsnapped by Jaylen Warren and everybody and their mother coming up with excuses. It's just immediately on to Kansas City Chiefs football. And with that, it's time to dive into what's more likely, because that, my friends, is what gets you riled up for Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs football. With that said, my friend, Week 17, Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs. Let's dive into it. What's more likely coming your way? Hit me with it.
Yeah, let's kick it off with Jaylen Warren, because he had a pretty good game against the Baltimore Ravens. So I want to know, what's more likely? Jaylen Warren has a 75-plus yard rushing game, which his season high this year is 66, or the returning George Pickens puts up 2 touchdowns against the Chiefs secondary?
Oh, the George Pickens. What's more likely? George freaking Pickens. This is George Pickens' game. Okay. Think about everything that is going on right now. Russell Wilson's got all the critics in the world behind him. The Steelers' offense is over. It's done. They stink. There is no turning back. All the spotlight is on George Pickens. And there are a lot of moments where you are worried about that spotlight. This is not one of them. This is give George the stage, let him shine. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to shine. He's going to go nuts. I expect George Pickens to be absolute lunacy out there on Christmas Day, because this is Moonball Central. This is, hey, Russ, what do you want to do? I just want to throw it to George. Okay, cool. Sounds good. Hey, George, what do you want to do? I just want the ball at all times, and it will be a perfect harmony. That's how I look at this. My expectations for George Pickens are massive. I missed the fantasy football Super Bowl because George has not played, only to have a full understanding that guy single-handedly probably will win me this matchup if I was in the Super Bowl this week. That's my expectations for George. What's more likely? I'd go George 2 touchdowns only over probably any other statistic you tossed at me.
Yeah, so you think he's going to be galloping throughout the Chiefs secondary, avoiding defensemen like a gazelle?
Yes, actually.
Coming off the hamstring. Or I guess we should say reindeer, not gazelle.
Dude, it's a I understand the hamstring, and we should say reindeer. I understand a hamstring, but I also understand that it's been 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And like, according to George, this wasn't like a big serious injury. I get it. The Steelers believe it was something, but like, he almost played the first time when this first initially happened. And he's been, I think half of this is the Steelers being safe, and the other half is an actual like serious hamstring injury.
All right, let's go over to the next one. What's more likely? The Steelers pick off Patrick Mahomes, or the Steelers hold Travis Kelce under 50 receiving yards, which has been the case for the last 3 weeks for the Chiefs tight end.
I'd go Travis Kelce. Don't get me wrong. Dante Jackson coming up with an interception. Awesome. Hopefully, or very realistic. Hopefully Minka's interception just opens the floodgates. We'll see what happens. Travis Kelce doesn't really intimidate me yet. It's not the playoffs. It's still 2 more weeks before Travis Kelce just becomes Travis Kelce, and we're like, oh, okay, there it is. That stinks. We're back. I don't see it. I don't know if Taylor Swift's going to be here, which I think obviously helps on Christmas. I just feel like this is teams are beat up. You're not going to really, at this point in the 3 games in 11-day stretch, teams are being more conservative than they're not. That's how people are going to approach it. I mean, you can look at every injury report across the board. These guys would probably tough through it if it wasn't 3 games in 11 days and everybody fully acknowledges that the NFL is just trying to screw people. So I look at this as there's a chance Travis goes off. There's also a chance that this is really Isaiah Pacheco heavy and really Hollywood Brown heavy. And those guys that the Chiefs are just going to try to like work in as they try to develop more and more of their offense. So what's more likely? Travis Kelce under 50 yards.
All right, let's go over to the Steelers offense again and say, what's more likely? Pat Freiermuth scores a touchdown. He had 3 and 3 before last week. Or Calvin Austin, after his big game in Baltimore, comes back to Pittsburgh and scores a touchdown for the first time in 4 weeks.
Oof. That's tough. Both of those are tough only because I chose George Pickens, which means that Russ is throwing 3 touchdowns in this game. I don't know how confident I am about that one. That's a tough one right there. If I had to guess, I'd go Pat Freiermuth. I would. I think George opens up Calvin Austin, obviously, but I really think that he opens up Pat Freiermuth and what the tight end game could do for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's the one. Is every couple of weeks the noise gets just very, very loud in Pittsburgh, and the Steelers eventually listen to that noise. The noise this week is so loud about Pat Freiermuth. That's what it is. All the questions are, why is Pat not getting involved? Is Pat supposed to be involved? Is Pat just not part of the game plan? What's going on with Pat? And all the questions are, no, he's schemed in there. These plays are designed for him. They're not. We are all well aware the Steelers offense is not designed for Pat Freiermuth. I think this is a game that they start to listen, and George Pickens is going to open up the middle of the field in Pat Freiermuth. So I'd go Pat finding the end zone in this one.
All righty, let's jump over to one about the closing of this game. What's more likely, Steelers win on a last-second Chris Boswell field goal, or the Steelers win on a walk-off turnover, whether it be an interception or a fumble?
Man, you better. It's got to be Chris Boswell. What's more likely is got to be Chris Boswell. Only because you're telling me that my choices are the Steelers put themselves into prime position to kick a field goal, or Patrick Mahomes turns the football over. That's very difficult. The Steelers even giving Patrick Mahomes 40 seconds feels like too much time at the end of a game, let alone banking on a turnover to end it. I don't think Patrick Mahomes does walk-off turnovers. I mean, 14 wins this season tells you very much so that if he does, they're not very often. I would go Chris Boswell in this one. I mean, you kind of almost have to hope that's what, because if there's 30 seconds, 20 seconds, 15 seconds left on that clock, you don't know what's going to happen. So you got to go Chris Boswell.
All right, we got one in the chat here, and if you have more, throw them in the chat as well. But Shower Curtain says, what's more likely, the Steelers win on Christmas Day or Travis Kelce proposes to Taylor Swift at halftime?
Oh, man, dude. Could you imagine how, well, the Steelers went on Christmas Day, but could you imagine proposing to Taylor Swift at a football game, which is the worst place you could propose to Taylor Swift, away from, not at your home stadium? Like, hey, will you marry me? We are on the road. This is Pittsburgh, actually.
She did sing the national anthem at Heinz Field one time, though, when she was very young.
Well,
so maybe
there it
it's
is.
A little nostalgia.
There it is. Just full circle moment. Started in the NFL, ends in the NFL, right on the North Shore. I would 110% say Christmas Day win for the Steelers. Could you imagine making Travis Kelce money and saying, I'm proposing at halftime of a football game where we could still lose?
Yeah.
The Chiefs can still lose the game. It would not go well. Story-wise, would be awesome. I'd be all about that content. But probably a full breakdown on All Steelers Talk. I'd be calling my wife. Be like, you coming home for dinner? I'm not, actually. You will never guess what's going on right now. Turn on the news. Yeah. No, I'm going Steelers win on Christmas Day.
We got another one here from Ernie Jones. Appreciate you, Ernie. Says, what's more likely, George Pickens has 3 touchdowns tomorrow, or Dante Jackson comes back and catches 2 interceptions off of Pat Mahomes?
Oh, as crazy as this sounds, I think I might take Dante Jackson catching 2 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes throwing double-digit interceptions isn't impossible. Three touchdown passes in a game is very, very rare. So if I had to pick between the two of what one's more realistic here, you got to go Dante Jackson with 2 interceptions. 2 interceptions is big. I mean, you come up with 2 interceptions against Patrick Mahomes, you got to be feeling pretty okay about your chances, at least. I'm not saying you're going to win, but you've put yourself in position to do something So I would go Dante Jackson. What's more likely? Dante Jackson, 2 interceptions.
All right, Corey threw an almost impossible one in here for you. Says Pickens gets 4 touchdowns, or the Steelers only score 10 with no catches from George Pickens.
Well, this is just brutal, guys. This is just brutal. As bad as the sounds, Steelers only score 10 points with no catches by Pickens, which is, I mean, both are nearly impossible. Okay. But if I had to guess, if I had to pick what's more likely, which is the name of the game, what's more likely to happen? The Steelers have been much closer to 10 points than they have been 4 touchdowns in 2 weeks. So you got to go only score 10 with George Pickens catching nothing, which would be brutal, but could happen.
And let's not also forget that the Chiefs defense is not a slouch either. The Chiefs defense is very good. So catching 4 touchdowns against them, keep the balls, because 100% that is a great day.
Yes.
Let's go to Grayson, who has a little bit of an easier one than these last 2 impossible ones. Grayson says, what's more likely, Mahomes gets sacked twice or Pickens gets 100+ and a touchdown?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. I would say what's more likely is Mahomes gets sacked twice. Feels like 2 sacks for the Pittsburgh Steelers is a realistic number. Not one that they come up with very often this season, but a realistic number. George Pickens, 100 yards and a touchdown. That's no easy feat. Doable, certainly. But there are a lot of games where George Pickens has 90 yards, and you're like, I'm almost positive he broke the receiving yards record in this game. I don't know how he only finished with 89 yards, but that's kind of what it feels like. I would say 2 sacks in this is what's more likely. Not saying I'm super confident in either of them, but I would go 2 sacks on Patrick Mahomes.
That's a wrap for what's more likely then.
Beautiful. Appreciate you guys. Always love a little holiday spirit. What's more likely? And it's the first time in a while, to be very honest, that nobody's backed me into a corner where 4 or 5 in a row, you guys are literally making me pick between the worst things in the world with the Pittsburgh Steelers or the best things in the world for the opposing team. And that felt a little holiday spirit. So felt good about that one. All right. On the other side of this, we're going to dive into all your questions as we do every single day. But first, we're going to take a quick break here from our boys over at DraftKings. Jingle bells, jingle all the way to my partners at DraftKings. The holidays are finally here, and my partners at DraftKings have the perfect gift for you. Right now, all new DraftKings customers who bet just $5 will get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Just download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and sign up using my promo code ALLSteelers. The crown is yours. That's right. New customers get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins after betting just $5. And don't forget to stay in the action and use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. Combine multiple bets together from the same game. I do it all the time. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings daily fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code ALLSteelers and bet just $5 on any wager and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. That's promo code ALLSteelers only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Shout out our boys over at DraftKings. All right, I totally forgot about game picks. Almost forgot about game picks. It's the best time of the year. It's Tuesday, man. Yeah. It's Tuesday. What are we doing? We should not be. I was thinking about that today. I was like, our Archidian rhythm. What is it? What is it called? The thing in your head?
I have no idea I have no idea. I'm not a scientist.
Sounds good. My internal clock, okay, tells me that it is Tomlin Tuesday, and 3.5 hours ago, I should have left a press conference, not ate Christmas cookies for lunch and wrap presents, and am now going to pick games for a game that happens on a Wednesday. I'm all thrown off. With that said, let's make our game picks. Week 17, Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs. We'll say this is a tough one. We'll also say when I checked the line on Sunday, it was not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. I was expecting full blown, we're talking 6.5 points in Baltimore. And I don't remember what it was, but I think it was under 3 when I checked on Sunday for this one. What do we got this week?
Yeah, as of right now, if you go check our friends at DraftKings, the Chiefs are 3-point favorites coming into Acrisure Stadium for the Candy Cane games. Over/under set at 44 flat. So that's pretty interesting that both teams are now either that both teams are expected to score 20 or they're expecting a blowout, which never happens in Chiefs games.
Yeah, never ever. Also, the candy cane patch, ugliest thing ever, right?
Yeah, not great.
Both agree with that?
Not
yeah,
great.
They're
Good
really, really.
It's not for us.
Could have done way better, and also didn't need to make it pink. Candy canes are red, so I feel like that just doesn't help the situation. If you just made it look like a regular candy cane, I could probably get on board, but it was weird. Ugly patch. Let's talk Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs. 3 points, okay? You get George Pickens back. You lose Joey Porter Jr. You're hoping that the Pittsburgh Steelers offense was one player away from figuring this thing out, that they were one player away from getting back on track to a place where you could feel confident in what they're capable of doing. The problem is that one player comes back the week that they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs with 3 days worth of rest, which is a lot. On the other side of that, the Pittsburgh Steelers have been resting. Deshaun Elliott's missed games. Larry O's missed games. Dante Jackson's missed a game. George Pickens missed games. The Steelers have been the team that have been getting healthy, while all of these other teams, especially the Kansas City Chiefs, who Chris Jones is questionable, they're down both of their offensive tackles. Massive. Are getting banged up. So maybe the Steelers are on the right side of the injury report here, and maybe that plays a role. You're also coming to Acrisure Stadium, which on Christmas I expected to be absolutely nuts. I think playing on a Wednesday is the dumbest thing ever. I think that Christmas Day games, cool if they're on a Thursday, but what are we doing here? I still expect that place to be absolutely bananas on Wednesday afternoon. I've only picked against the Pittsburgh Steelers one time this season, and I didn't feel good about it, but I was right. Unfortunately, I'm going to do it again. And I know nobody wants to hear it. I know this is Christmas Day miracle. I get it. I'll give you 2 predictions, okay? I'll try to right my wrong with the second one. My first one counts. My second one is just chances are Noah's going to be wrong, so here's what I'm really thinking. My brain tells me the final score of this game is 23-20, and the Pittsburgh Steelers look like a competitor against the Kansas City Chiefs, but they just don't have enough firepower to pull it off. That's what my brain tells me. Christmas and my heart and my gut tells me that the Pittsburgh Steelers win this one 27-21. Why? Because George Pickens goes absolutely nuts on this one. And the Steelers just got too much, and the Chiefs are too beat up. And this is a shut down all the noise type of situation. But I'm sticking with my brain. I'm going with my brain on this one. Why? Because I've picked with my brain all season long, and it's done good for me. So I'm going to keep trying to do it as we go through these next 2 games. I'm going Pittsburgh Steelers 20, Chiefs 23. It doesn't feel good on Christmas. And I think at some point there's an opportunity that this is like another, what are we? How did this happen? How did the Chiefs do this again? Type of moment. You never know, but I don't feel good about it. I'm going 23-20 Chiefs. It's depressing. I can't hype up picking against the Steelers, but sometimes I got to do it. Second time this season. Hopefully I'm wrong this time around. What do you got?
I will tell you that I partially agree with you. When it comes to the Steelers winning on Christmas Day, my mind is telling me no, but my body's telling me yes. I don't know if it's because I'm in an undisclosed location that is close now to the Monongahela River. I don't know if it's that Pittsburgh air that I'm breathing in, but the Chiefs have gotten to 14. Well, yes. The Chiefs have gotten to 14-1 with good bounces, favorable calls, and a little bit of luck. It's hard to get that at Acrisure Stadium. I know that some people will say the stripes are going to help out a lot, but the vibes, if you're going to win on vibes alone, a lot of the time when it's at Heinz Field or Acrisure Stadium, the vibes go towards the home team. So I'm thinking that the magic runs out on Christmas Day. I'm thinking George Pickens has a crazy day. I agree with you. I think him coming out and getting healthy, he's going to be ready to make a statement. And I think Arthur Smith is going to be ready to make a statement. So too is Russell Wilson, after several people saying that, he's on the wrong side now. He's trending downward, that he's not going to be able to recapture that magic. I think this is going to be a game that they want to show out on Netflix. And hopefully we all see it because it doesn't start buffering. But I think if we do see it,
True,
the Steelers pull this one out 27-24. The vibes are right for Chris Boswell, game winner in the waning seconds. And Patrick Mahomes can do nothing but sit on and watch as he suffers his second loss of the season and gets back on the plane and doesn't care about it because he's Patrick Mahomes and he's 14-2.
True. That's very true. They are 14-2. That would be a great day. That'd be a great Christmas day. That would be a moment everybody would be very excited for. Okay. And I hope you're right. I do. Because as you're talking, my brain's going, damn it, Noah. You never go against your heart. What are you doing here? What are we doing here? But I'm going to stick with it. But I'm hoping you're right. I'm hoping you're right on this one. What are we on record? You got to be 2 away, I think. 2.5.
I am 2.5 away. You're 11-4 on the year. I'm 8-6.
Look at, there's 2 games left. Okay. You get this. What's your score prediction again? 27 what?
27-24.
27-24. You hit it on the head.
Mm-hmm.
You just took the lead, my friend. You just took the lead. So it's still very much so a possibility here as we come down to the wire. Plus, there's probably going to be playoff games. It's not like we're just not picking playoff games. Okay. It's not how we don't just stop betting because the regular season's over. That's when it gets exciting.
I was about to say, in fact, we bet more when the playoffs start.
More because your time is running out here. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to just leave money in your DraftKings account.
The road is narrowing. Yes.
The road, it is narrowing. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, they got an opportunity to take advantage here of a beat up Kansas City team that I'll tell you, their offensive tackles are what, if the Steelers are going to walk away with this one, George Pickens is a big one, but the fact that TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith get some backups, I think is very undervalued in the way things sit currently with this one. All right, I'm going 23-20 Kansas City Chiefs. Our boy Nick Belsky's keeping the hope alive. 27-24 Pittsburgh Steelers in this one. We're shifting gears. We're diving into all your questions to finish off this holiday episode of All Steelers Talk here. We'll answer all of them, so make sure you toss them in the chat. We'll get to them before we head out of here. Nick, what do we got?
Yeah, let's kick it off with Alexander, who brings up a really good point. Russ beat the Chiefs last year. Does he know the secret for a Christmas miracle? And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, my friend. Yeah, it would be nice. But I think this. Russ is a quarterback that I feel much better beating the Chiefs than most quarterbacks in the league, because this is like Russ did it. Everybody's talking about it on Thursday type of situation. Like that's how I feel about this. It feels very much so like the Steelers are still in the controller or the driver's seat of the AFC North. To get that done, you got to beat the Chiefs. So I'm not going to say no. Russ gives me some confidence in this just because of who Russ is and the demeanor he works with and operates with. But there's a lot more that goes into winning football games against Kansas City Chiefs than your quarterback. So we'll see what happens, but I do feel good about it.
Let's go over to Shower Curtain, who says, I believe Mike Tomlin doesn't have it. Can't coach the big game and never will. Any thoughts?
I mean, he's won a Super Bowl, so,
It's pretty big.
Has done that. Yeah, been to 2. Also pretty impressive. I do think Mike Tomlin needs to win a playoff game this year. And the fact that things are a little iffy about whether or not he's going to is huge. And this is where it starts. You win a playoff game this year. If you win a playoff game this year, you got to win 2 next year. Minimum. You got to win 2 next year. That's where the Steelers are. And Mike Tomlin is, you got to start winning these big ones. Will he do it? I don't know. I've been very critical of Mike Tomlin over the last 2 weeks. I'll try to hold back on some of that criticism as we get ready for another game.
Let's go over to Sebastian, who says, will the Steelers draft Jalen Milroe in the first round?
There's a possibility. I think Jalen Milroe is going to skyrocket as we get closer to the NFL draft and be a top 15 pick. So I don't think the Steelers are even going to get an opportunity. I think quarterback is on their list, though, and is a possibility, even if they sign Russell Wilson to a longer-term deal. You want somebody behind him to learn and grow and become that guy. You want a backup just in case your starter goes down. These are all things they're going to be thinking about. I think that it's a real possibility the Pittsburgh Steelers draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds this year, even if they sign Russell Wilson.
Let's jump down to TD Tom, who says, will Pat Freiermuth see more than 3 targets in this game?
If you're playing the numbers, no. If you're playing the numbers, no chance. He pretty much maxes out at 3 targets. The Steelers offense, once he gets his 3, goes, Pat's not even here anymore. Watching the Baltimore game, I don't even think he got 3. I think they just gave him 3. Because all I remember, no, I don't think that's true. I think he only caught the 1 third down where Tom Brady on the thing was like, oh, look at Pat Freiermuth, and then he threw it to Pat Freiermuth. I'm pretty sure that was the only time he caught the football. And then they were just like 3 for 16. That sounds like a reasonable Pat Freiermuth number. No, if I had to guess, no, he does not go more than 3 targets in this game.
Let's check in with our good buddy Carl Spackler, who says, fun one here for you. What unit, both teams combined, will score the most touchdowns between the tight ends, the running backs, and the wide receivers?
You got to, that's tough. I'm going to go wide receivers. George is probably going to get one. Maybe somebody else gets one. And I would imagine somebody in Kansas City does. Like if you put James Pierre on Xavier Worthy, I'm very worried about that matchup. Very worried about that matchup. Hollywood Brown too. Like Hollywood Brown is no schlump. He is a very good wide receiver who has played very well in this league before. I would go wide receivers would be my bet on this one. Number 2 would be running backs.
Let's jump down to Raid, who says, how does not having JPJ available against the Chiefs affect our pass defense? Worried about D-Hop and company potentially going off.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's huge not to have Joey Porter Jr. out there. You don't have the physical guy against DeAndre Hopkins. You're kind of banking on Dante Jackson shutting down these speedy guys and possibly playing D-Hop, which is no easy task. I don't care how old he is or whether or not he's past his prime. Doesn't matter to me. I'd be a little worried about not having Joey Porter Jr. I am a little worried about not having Joey Porter Jr. We'll see what happens. I think it forces the front guys, the front 7, to play much better. But at the same time, that's what we just talked about. The not having tackles for the Chiefs plays a huge role into this, because if you can make Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable, you take a lot of the pressure off of your guys on the back end. And without Joey Porter Jr., that's what you're going to need. You're going to need TJ and Alex to make things happen up front to really force some uncomfortable throws from Patrick Mahomes and protect your weakened secondary behind him.
Let's go over to Inferno, who says, Noah and Nick, when are we going to get an AST terrible towel in the merch shop?
That would be awesome, actually. Never even thought about an AST terrible towel. Right now we got the Nick, what do you got? And we got a Chris Boswell one in the works that somebody has tossed us that is pretty awesome, actually. That's also in the works. An AST terrible towel would be sick. I would have to look into some copyright rules, but that would be awesome.
Let's jump down to Shower Curtain, who says, any idea what refs are officiating this game?
Yeah, I know it's Greg Worlstad's crew. I don't really know who else is on there, but he's the one who is running it. I mean, not really a name that I'm like super worried about. He's got 15.1 penalties on the season, which is the second most amongst referees. But Clete Blakeman is like the guy that I'd be worried about. He'd be the officiating crew that I'd be stressing over. So the way I look at it is it's very simple. The NFL refs hate the Pittsburgh Steelers. That ain't never going to change. So I would expect some bad calls going Pittsburgh's way at some point. And the officiating this season, just like every season, is getting worse. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Let's go over to Jenna, who says, Rudolph saved Christmas last year. Who plays Yukon Cornelius's role this year?
And tames the Bumble. Oh man, dude, I don't know. It'd be Russ, right? It'd be Russ. Jaylen Warren, man. That's my pick. Although the George Pickens, the Rudolph who saved Christmas was the best headline we've ever written, and I was so excited to write it. And this year, I think we'd have to come up with something cool with George. But he went off. People don't Maybe they do, maybe they don't. George had a game last year on Christmas Eve, and wouldn't be surprised if he did it again.
Let's jump over to Gabs, who says, Brazilian here. It's my first time in Pittsburgh/Acrisure Stadium tomorrow.
Hey.
What time should I get in the stadium area, and what should I do prior to kickoff?
Go hit some tailgates. That would be my recommendation. Burt Kreischer's supposed to be out there. Nate Bargatze's supposed to be out there. Like, it's supposed to be a party, my friend, in these lots. I'd have a good time there. Welcome to Pittsburgh, first of all. And what time should you get there? Kickoff's at 1. They'll start letting you in the stadium about 11. I'd be in the stadium by like noon in case you're trying to like get some stuff. It's probably going to get crazy. Before that, dude, I'd just be hanging out at the North Shore, having a good time and trying to get into some tailgates and hanging out there with some people.
Let's go over to Zachary, who says, how important is it for number 2 to be active tomorrow?
Important, but I don't expect him to be active tomorrow. I don't expect Justin Fields to play. I think this is one more. The fact that he was limited just kind of, I don't know. I think he's there. I think he's on the verge, but abdominal injuries, they do linger and they are more serious than other injuries. So I don't expect him to be active. That's just my guess. I think it's big to have Justin Fields out there. That's a missing element to this offense is Justin Fields and just having another quarterback who could take off and get around the edge. I know it's not like a deal breaker, but it's something that makes you more unique than any other team, and I think that's valuable.
Let's jump to Alexander, who says, whatever happened to Troy Fautanu potentially being back by the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't know. There were reports out there. From what I've been told, that was never a thing. It was a big maybe that the Steelers kind of understood was not a real maybe. He's not coming back for the playoffs. Troy's done for the season. So is Roman Wilson. They'll reevaluate next year.
Let's go over to Eddie the Great, who says, does the fact that Atlanta might actually get a home game with that record show that we need to do away with divisions and just go top records in the playoffs?
No, because the NFC, yeah, I get it that division's terrible, but the AFC's had terrible divisions. I mean, the Houston Texans and the Jaguars and the Indianapolis Colts, they're not playing in the fiercest division in football. It just seems to happen every now and then. If you did do that, it would make things very complicated for a lot of good teams. And the Steelers would be on the outskirts sometimes because of how things have shaken out. So I would say no. I like that, Seattle could get in there at 8-8 and go on a run because of Marshawn Lynch. That makes me fired up. That gives me something to watch. So I would say no. I would say no. I wish they were better, but at some point the tides will likely turn and they'll be fun.
Now, Alexander asked about Troy Fautanu being back for the playoffs. Terry wants to know any news on Cole Holcomb potentially being back for the playoffs.
No news on Cole Holcomb. The last we spoke about Cole Holcomb was the Jerry Dulac conversation about potentially coming back this season and maybe sometime soon. Haven't heard anything since. I mean, you can't even speculate at this point. You're just waiting for something. Right now, there's nothing. Cole Holcomb, from my understanding, is not playing. Doesn't have plans to anytime soon.
Let's go to Grayson, who says, hey, Noah and Nick, how do you guys see our front seven performing tomorrow? Mahomes always seems to slip away and makes a crazy throw. Merry Christmas to you gents as well.
Yes, sir. Merry Christmas. I mean, it's Patrick Mahomes, so you have to take that into account. I say this, not having tackles with Juwan Taylor and DJ Humphries both being injured is huge. That's like not being spoken about enough when it comes to this matchup. I don't think it is a deal breaker. I do not think that it makes Patrick Mahomes' life so beatable that it's over and the Chiefs are going to lose. I do think it gives the Pittsburgh Steelers a massive advantage to make things uncomfortable for the Chiefs and their quarterback, but it's still Patrick Mahomes, and he does ridiculous. He's the best quarterback of our generation. He's done crazy, crazy things. He continues to do crazy, crazy things. That's not going to stop. So it's just like playing Lamar. It's just like playing Josh Allen. You got to put pressure on him. You got to make him uncomfortable, even if he's not secluding to that uncomfortability. So you have to do something. You got to try. I do think it helps to have a banged up offensive line for Kansas City, but I'm not going to say it's a deal breaker or gives the Steelers an advantage against Patrick Mahomes.
I'm liking this trend of every other question being about an injury player that we haven't talked about in weeks. Pittsburgh Steelers fan 8 says, any chance for Cam Johnston to return for the playoffs?
What a name here. Okay. This is the one. Okay. Why are we not asking about Cam Johnston anymore?
Yeah.
Why is that not the guy?
Corliss Whiteman's been pretty good too.
He has. Cam's not coming back. Cam, I believe, just got off the crutches like a week or two ago. He's still in the big giant leg brace. He's got so much going on right now. Hopefully next season, I will say he's a stud, dude. He does like film review for Calvin Austin, helping with the kick returners and helping study punters and that kind of stuff. He does a ton for Corliss Waitman and Christian Kuntz and Chris Boswell. He's a stud. So shout out Cam, but no, he's not going to be back this season.
All right, let's jump over to Sabo, who says, Merry Christmas from the 570, Noah.
Hey,
finally got
out.
a Permane Brothers in Pittston. I remember you mentioned you're from Scranton, but my question is, do you think the Steelers bring back both quarterbacks next season?
I'm glad that you guys got a Permane's in good old Piston. My dad used to work at the Quins in Piston growing up, so shout out. I will say that I do not think they bring both quarterbacks back. The way I look at it is they're probably going to bring Russ back. The only way Justin comes back is if he goes to free agency, he doesn't get any opportunity in free agency, and he says, screw it, at least this is a place where I could come in and run a couple of times. But I don't see that happening. I think it's a Russell Wilson's job, and it'll be Russell Wilson's future in Pittsburgh. Justin's going to go get a job somewhere with an opportunity somewhere, and the Steelers will lose out on that one. But I don't think both of them come back. I don't think that's realistic where we stand right now.
Let's get back on those injury returns. Joshua says, I guess I might as well ask, any chance Big Ben makes a return for the playoffs?
Yep, there's a chance. There's a chance. I will say, shout out Ben fighting for the little guys yesterday, just going off on the NFL on his podcast. That was awesome. So shout out Big Ben, and no, he's not coming back.
Let's jump over to Ya Boy, who says, who do you think will have a better game tomorrow? Alex Highsmith or TJ Watt?
Alex Highsmith. My bet is Alex Highsmith. I think Alex puts on a show, my friends. So I'd go Alex Highsmith. TJ's just not 100% right now. You saw how slow he was against Baltimore. He's not there. He doesn't have his speed right now. So I'm not taking anything away from him. Alex Highsmith is a monster, and I just expect him to play like a monster.
Shout out to Eddie the Great here. We appreciate you as always. Says, Merry Christmas, boys. Thanks for a great 2024. Here's to many, many more great shows. P.S. I think this is the best part of this entire message. Tip of the iceberg is great.
Tip of the iceberg is great. Shout out Eddie the Great, man. We appreciate you. You're awesome, dude. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Let's go over to Alexander, who says, who's commentating the game? I need to know if it's worth heading to a bar or if I should just mute the TV when Mahomes is playing.
I don't know who. I think Tom Brady calling the game?
No, 3 weeks in a row with Tom Brady. That would be a lot.
I know he is calling a game.
For Netflix, it's going to be Ian Eagle with JJ Watt and Nate Burleson as their color commentators.
Okay, that's not bad. JJ and Nate are good ones. Ian was always reliable. Definitely, hit a couple of stutters, but I stink a lot of times too. So I can't be bagging on anybody. That's a good one. That's a good one. I'm all about JJ, and Nate Burleson's a stud. So, and former Pittsburgh Steeler. So, I'm all about it.
Yeah. And potentially future Pittsburgh Steeler and JJ Watt. I mean, maybe.
That's what they say. That's what
they
Christmas
say.
Miracles. Look at. Just saying, he's going to be here. Why would he not be here? Doesn't take that much. Sign a contract. Keep it moving.
Get that bag from Netflix for commentating the game, then walk right down to the locker room and sign your contract. Easy as that.
That's what I'm saying. There is. Look at. If we were waiting for anything, it was the bag from Netflix. You got it. Playoff push. Let's make a run.
Let's finish with your boy who says, how many offensive touchdowns are the Pittsburgh Steelers going to have tomorrow?
My guess is, I said 20. My guess was 2. Nick's guess was 4, 3?
3.
I'd go minimum 2. I'd go minimum 2, hopeful 4. That would be my guess. Bold prediction, 4+, but that's bold. I would go, I'll name them. Ready? I'll name my 2. And who I think could get a third. George is one of them. I'm going Najee with 2. And for the third, I'd go Pat Freiermuth. That would be my third on this one, which is the most boring answer you could give. But
You don't want to throw out a Michael Pruitt, Connor Hayward. I mean, Pruitt had one last week.
He did have one, but that's what I'm saying. It runs out. Like we're like 8 guys away before Darnell Washington makes another catch in the end zone. So you just never know. You never know.
We do have one more that jumped in here late. Alexander says, does TJ need at least one more sack tomorrow or versus Burrow to lock up Defensive Player of the Year?
I do think he needs at least one more just to kind of give him that little oomph. 11.5 is awesome. 12, 13 would be huge. I just think that's a difference maker. So I would go that or a game-changing play. That's the other side of this, is if TJ comes out of here and comes up with an interception or a touchdown or a forced fumble in a crucial moment against Patrick Mahomes, that's a difference. Like that's at that point you're feeling pretty okay. So I would say that's what he needs, a sack or just like another game-changing JJ's losing his absolute mind in the booth play to kind of seal the deal on Defensive Player of the Year.
That's a wrap for today then.
Awesome. With that said, guys, we are heading out of here. Thank you so much for jumping on to a holiday episode of All Steelers Talk. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/All Steelers Talk. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts. And as always, find all of our work at si.com/NFL/Steelers. Thank you guys so much for jumping on with us throughout this week, and especially today. I hope everybody has a Merry Christmas. We will be back on Thursday morning to recap the game, so make sure you guys are tuning into that. Enjoy some time with your family, and hopefully a Pittsburgh Steelers win. We'll see you on Thursday. Peace.